Yeah. So we want to offer you a couple of tools on navigating differences, holding differences to create and maintain connection. And the first biggest one, the big one that we want to offer you is that willingness to acknowledge that differences are there, right? To be able to name them, to acknowledge them, and to grieve them. To grieve the disillusionment that happens when you're in a long-term relationship. There is so much disappointment and disillusionment and these implicit expectations that we bring into any relationship. And the willingness to face that grief. I think grief is not spoken to about enough. I know, Robin, you mentioned last year in the In Bloom at the end, you brought up grief, and I've been thinking about that. And we reserve grief for breakups and death and these other things, but we don't recognize the importance of the presence of honoring it in long-term relationships, right? And it's there. It's there. It's present.
It's one of the things they never tell you. You get into a relationship, and I'm a relationship guy. I always wanted to be in a relationship. I wanted that. But you get into a relationship, and then there's all this grief that may arise. All this, it's weird, because no one talks about that. Can anybody relate to that? Yeah, yeah. And I mean, we could just spend the rest of the time talking about that. We're not going to do that, but there's grief is such a, especially, just speaking as someone who identifies as a man, grief, I ain't got time for that. Got shit to do, got problems to solve, right? We got a day to get on with. And yet, oh my goodness, I am working with men all the time that because we don't know how to grieve, we're stuck, contracted in our bodies, rigid, unable to move forward in relationship because we can't, we can't. And we check out in all kinds of ways. It's heartbreaking.
And we're coming off the tail end of a global pandemic still, and the amount of grief and transitions and change and loss that people have experienced in these last 5 years is truly monumental. And it comes up in my sessions all the time.
And there's sort of two things we want to say about grief here. One is there's just the normal grief of, what's that quote, babe? Did you read your quote? Say that. I think that's really important. That's the first thing we want to say about grief.
Oh, the words that I wrote. Yeah. May I grieve my expectations of you so that I can discover your love yet again. I wrote that quote years ago and people really resonated with, because I think we all want to drop underneath the conditioning, those expectations, all of those things that can get in the way. But in order to do that, we do have to grieve. We can't escape that part,
Exactly. I mean, just like the travel thing. I had to grieve her not wanting to go live with me in a remote cabin for a year in the northern wilds of the Arctic Pole. Like, really, I had to grieve that. And that's the first thing we want to say. That's just that 69%. We've got to learn how to grieve that, to let that, and mutually, to also not take it on. I mean, Silvy, it was really important for her to not take on my grief, that she's not going to travel the same way I do, and vice versa. I'm not going to travel the same way she does.
And tolerating that I was disappointed, that felt like I was disappointing him constantly in this, right. And just sitting with that, it was so uncomfortable for me.
And the other thing we want to say about grief is life is hard, right? The last 5 years have been gnarly for everybody, and some of us, keep going, right? Life is challenging. I'd say bad things happen, but unwanted things happen all the time. Silvy and I had the wedding of our dreams planned in Ireland for April 2020. Pandemic hits March 2020, right? Taken away from us. That just launched us into a season of loss. What we've been through, we counted with a therapist that we work with sometimes, 18 events in the last 5 years, that one or two of them could be devastating. I mean, we've been through infertility, found out we couldn't have a child together. We've done 3 cross-country moves, being uprooted. I lost my father. He's still alive. I became estranged from my father and my sister, and more. And how people grieve also. We grieve differently, right? We grieve differently, and being able to make space for different grieving journeys and processes is also something that we even a job change. One of you could be really excited, and the other is like, I have to be uprooted and lose everything, right? So again, all of these are sources of power struggle, but when we know how to navigate them, we're going to give a couple more tools. They can be, what's the name of this talk? Embrace differences for deeper connection.
For deeper connection.
Don't forget this part.
Oh yeah, it says insert joke here to lighten the mood. Got it. Okay. Sean, remind me to do that. Thanks. Okay. Got it.
So the second tool we want to talk about is the importance of creating agreements. 69% of things doesn't mean you just let things fall, right? You know, even planning this trip, Bryan and I have found a balance that works for us. We're going to spend a couple nights in the city, a couple nights in the countryside somewhere, but still near hospitals. Still can't get me all the way away from that. But just the importance of creating agreements where you can. What are your agreements around conflict? There's going to be certain things that are going to be really harmful to your relationship if you don't create agreements for those things. What are the agreements around parenting styles, right? Household responsibilities. What are some of the other agreements? Privacy. You know, I'm much more private than Bryan is. Sometimes when he wants to write certain blogs, for example, he'll just check in with me first. Like, is this okay? Are you comfortable with this?
Which
Right?
I didn't want to do at the beginning at all.
But he's got to, because boundaries.
Yeah, that was it was one of the things that we had to navigate at the beginning, a really painful, difficult, challenging difference. You know, I like to, in my work with agreements, I like to say resentments die in the land of agreements. Look, I was just winging it for, I don't know, from the first time I went on a date with a girl, probably, 13 to you know, I'm still winging it, let's be honest. But we're all winging it to some degree, but we're all winging it, right? And this is an area a lot of us, and we want to ask you, want to hear from you, what areas of your life might be, or might you have made agreements that helped you navigate a difference, a difficult difference?
We'd love to hear from you guys on this one.
Sorry?
You by the mic?
Getting rid of gender roles.
Well, I want to hear this. Yep. Can you say that again for us?
I said getting rid of gender roles. So
Gender
basically,
roles.
we focus on strengths. Who can do it? Who's got the time to
Beautiful.
do it?
I love
Who's
that.
got the spoons to do it?
Exactly. I love that.
You don't. If I see the trash needs to be taken out, I'm not going to take it out still. But I'm just saying. But if I see it needs to be taken out because it's overflowing, I'm going to take it out. If you see that, if
Right.
he sees that the dishes need to be washed, he's going to do it. We're not doing things because you're male.
Right.
So we do what needs to be done.
I love that. Yeah.
And I think that's a really important note, because we can get stuck in those very rigid gender patterns that doesn't always feel authentic. And if we don't actually explore that conditioning and feel into where we might want to partake in, we can really limit ourselves in a relationship, right?
You know, it's funny. Early in our relationship, I don't know if it was early, but I remember there was a time where I thought, I'm going to do the gentlemanly thing, and, you know, when the waiter comes, I'm going to order for her. How'd that go over? Yeah, she did not appreciate that. Got it. Cool.
I want to hear more from you guys on this. What other agreements have you had to create, or would you want to create?
I think I have accepted somebody who's avoidant, and I respected that's the way he is, and I just have to respect that and kind of make peace with it.
Okay.
As you speak to that, I'm aware one of the agreements that we had to make early in our relationship around communication, you're talking about communication styles, my goodness, I've heard over the years from really mostly women, excuse me, on who are dating someone, typically a man, who can go days or weeks without communicating. And the feedback I get is, I don't like this, but what do I do? It's like, Silvy and I, early in our relationship, we had an agreement pretty quick that we were going to connect every day. I don't necessarily, she's going to tell you that I'm full of shit right now. I'm going to say I don't really need that.
He needs it.
Yeah, she's probably right. But I believe, I'm more autonomous. I can do my thing. And we've had to navigate that agreement. We had to make that agreement. And Silvy was a stand for that very early in our relationship. I was traveling a lot. I was in New York. She was in LA, right? And I would call her at the end of the day, right? Check in at the end of the day. And at one point she said, that's not really working for me. What's going on? Are we okay? Are we...
Anxious attachment coming back up.
And I'm thinking, of course we're okay. Like, if we're not okay, you'll tell me, you'll call me, right? I didn't want to wake her up. Again, the stories we tell. I didn't want to wake her up. I think I'm doing the right, responsible thing. So she said, look, I really need to hear from you in the morning as well. Cool, I can do that. Next morning, yo, you sleep all right? You good? Everything okay? What you doing today? All right, cool.